She came across a monster. According to a criminal complaint filed today, that's what Brandon Thompson told police when he was interviewed.
Yeah, police say Thompson brutally attacked a UW student in the middle of the night. NBC 15's Marcus Arsvald joins us live, detailing Thompson's first court appearance. Now, Marcus, Thompson is accused of sexually assaulting and brutally beating that woman early Sunday morning.
Yeah, the criminal complaint says Thompson told police he was on a, quote, high walk, angry, and he wanted to hit something. Police say Thompson told them he saw the victim, then couldn't remember what happened next until he saw her again severely beaten. Both prosecution and defense lawyers arguing about public safety in Dane County Court today after this gruesome crime.
This defendant is obviously, from the complaint, you can see alleged to have committed one of the most horrific sexual assaults in recent memory here in Dane County.
The Dane County District Attorney's Office argues Brandon Thompson randomly attacked and sexually abused a woman based on camera footage, DNA evidence, and witnesses who saw him with the victim on the ground.
We live in a community where thousands of young people just moved to our city, thousands of young women. They should be free to walk around the downtown area without fear of being followed, attacked, and raped.
Thompson appeared in court via video from his jail cell, while prosecutors confidently argued he's the person responsible for sending the UW-Madison student to the hospital with life-threatening injuries.
Brandon Thompson is 26 years old. He's relatively young.
Thompson's defense attorney fought for a $10,000 bail, while prosecutors argued for $2 million.
He is employed, but he's not a hedge fund manager. So $10,000 is an amount that would be meaningful to him and that would have secured his appearance and, of course, all of the non-monetary conditions.
According to his attorney, Thompson is a UW-Milwaukee grad with a degree in criminal justice administration and a minor in psychology. The attorney argues the evidence listed in the criminal complaint does not prove their client is guilty.
We, at this point, have not been able to assess the strength of the evidence. We're continuing to do our own investigation, which really, obviously, we have just started. And we've turned up some inconsistent evidence even at this point, and we will continue to aggressively pursue all defenses for Brandon.
Thompson's bail was set at $1 million. He remains behind Dane County bars, and he'll be back in court at the end of the month. Live in the studio, Marcus Arsvald, NBC 15 News.
Marcus, thank you. We are on top of this story, so make sure you download the NBC 15 News app. We will send you updates as soon as we learn more about this case.